Fenner? You try to rob Fenner?
Rob is an ugly word. Money should only be left in the hands of those who know how to spend it.
How do I know you won't lead me into a trap?
"20 weird facts about Kangaroo you didn't know." Before we begin, understand this. Kangaroo is not an adventure film. It's a story about men running from their past, about masculinity tested in isolation, and about how distance doesn't erase guilt, it amplifies it. This isn't Australia as freedom, it's Australia as exposure. Let's begin. Fact 1. This film uses Australia as a moral landscape, not a setting. Kangaroo doesn't treat Australia as scenery, it treats it as judgment. The wide deserts, endless horizons, and empty spaces don't promise escape. They remove hiding places. There are no crowds to disappear into, no cities to absorb mistakes. The land watches, and it doesn't forgive. Fact 2. The protagonist is defined by what he won't talk about. The central character arrives already damaged, not wounded physically, not unfinished morally. The film never rushes to explain his past. Instead, it lets silence do the work. His history leaks out through hesitation, mistrust, and distance from others. In Kangaroo, mystery isn't suspense, it's guilt waiting to be named. Fact 3. Masculinity is portrayed as survival, not strength. This is not heroic masculinity. No speeches, no dominance, no triumph. Men here survive by adapting, negotiating danger, suppressing emotion, and avoiding attachment. Strength isn't celebrated, endurance is, and endurance has a cost. Fact 4. The kangaroo isn't a symbol of freedom. The title is deceptive. The kangaroo doesn't represent joy or movement, it represents instinct. Survive, flee, protect, repeat. The film subtly asks, if humans live only by instinct, what separates them from animals? Fact 5. The film hides its violence until it's unavoidable. Early on, Kangaroo feels calm, too calm. Danger is implied, not shown. Threats exist in tone, not action. But when violence finally appears, it feels sudden and personal, not cinematic, uncomfortable. Because the film wants you to feel how quickly restraint collapses. Fact 6. Trust in this film is always temporary. In Kangaroo, alliances form quickly and dissolve faster. Men work together not because they believe in one another, but because being alone is worse. Trust isn't moral, it's transactional. The moment circumstances change, loyalty becomes negotiable. Fact 7. Greed slowly replaces survival. At first, characters want safety, then they want advantage, then they want control. The film charts this shift carefully, showing how necessity evolves into desire. What begins as survival logic quietly becomes greed, and greed demands risk. This is where things start to break. Fact 8. The desert makes every choice final. In cities, mistakes can be absorbed. In the desert, they echo. Kangaroo understands geography as consequence. There are no shortcuts, no reinforcements, no forgiveness once a line is crossed. Every decision feels heavier because there is nowhere to retreat. Fact 9. Violence arrives without ceremony. When conflict turns violent, it doesn't escalate, it interrupts. There's no dramatic buildup, just a sudden shift from tension to damage. The film refuses spectacle, forcing the viewer to confront violence as disruption, not entertainment. It's over quickly, but it changes everything. Fact 10. Silence becomes a weapon. As danger grows, dialogue shrinks. Characters speak less, not because they have nothing to say, but because words can expose intent. Silence becomes strategy. What isn't said becomes more important than what is, and misunderstandings multiply. Fact 11. Morality becomes a liability. By now, Ethical behavior feels impractical. Characters who hesitate, who question motives or consequences, fall behind. The desert rewards decisiveness, not reflection. Kangaroo quietly suggests something unsettling. In extreme environments, morality slows you down, and slowness gets punished. Fact 12. Power shifts without warning. There's no single villain takeover. Power moves in fragments. A man who was useful becomes expendable. A follower becomes a decision-maker. Leadership changes hands without ceremony. The film treats power as unstable, never earned permanently, only held until conditions shift. Fact 13. The landscape starts mirroring the characters. As tension escalates, the desert stops feeling neutral. It reflects internal states. Wide shots grow emptier. Horizons feel farther away. Shelter feels temporary, even illusory. The environment doesn't just trap the characters, it echoes their isolation. Fact 14. Violence stops being reactive and becomes preventive. Earlier, violence was a response. Now, it's anticipation. Characters act not because something happened, but because something might happen. Fear drives preemptive decisions. This is where paranoia replaces logic, and mistakes become irreversible. Fact 15. Survival requires becoming someone else. The most disturbing transformation is internal. By the end of this section, characters no longer recognize the people they were at the beginning. Survival has demanded adaptation, and adaptation has erased identity. The film doesn't dramatize this. It lets it happen quietly. That's what makes it unsettling. Fact 16. The film refuses a traditional winner. Kangaroo technically resolves its conflict, but it never crowns a victor. Those who survive do not look triumphant. They look altered, quieter, heavier, less certain. The film understands that endurance is not the same as success. Living through something does not mean winning it. Fact 17. The ending feels empty on purpose. There is no emotional release, no swelling music, no moral speech, no reassurance. The film ends the way extreme experiences often do, not with clarity, but with exhaustion. What happened matters less than what can no longer be undone. That emptiness is intentional. Fact 18. The desert never apologizes. Unlike many adventure films, Kangaroo does not sentimentalize nature. The land doesn't teach lessons. It doesn't reward virtue. It doesn't punish evil consistently. It simply exists, indifferent to human intention. Survival was never personal. Only humans made it so. Fact 19. The film is really about masculinity under pressure. Strip away the adventure, and something else emerges. Kangaroo is about men placed in an environment where control, dominance, and decisiveness are constantly tested. Emotional restraint becomes armor. Vulnerability becomes risk. The film quietly critiques this model, showing how strength, when stripped of empathy, collapses inward. What remains is isolation. Fact 20. The final truth is that survival changes the meaning of home. By the end, home no longer feels like a place. It feels like a memory. Characters may leave the desert, but the desert doesn't leave them. The version of themselves that entered this story no longer exists. Kangaroo ends with a truth most adventure films avoid. You can escape the environment, but you cannot escape what it required you to become. Kangaroo is not an adventure about exploration. It's a study of pressure. Pressure reveals how trust collapses, how morality slows down, how survival reshapes identity, and how silence often says more than victory ever could. If this documentary made the film feel darker than you remembered, if it made survival feel costly instead of heroic, if it left you uneasy rather than satisfied, subscribe now for more deep dive film documentaries that explore the psychological weight behind classic cinema. Because the most honest adventure stories don't ask where you went, they ask who you stopped being along the way.